Many of you who have never actually clicked on an episode of Unsung Heroes before, or maybe who are unfamiliar with it, are probably wondering, why is he talking about a classic Golf? How is that an unsung hero? Everybody knows about the classic Golf GTI, the late 70s Type 17 in particular, so what's so special about this one? Well, those of you who are a fan of Unsung Heroes, and there are quite a few of you now, you know that there's got to be something different here. If we're talking about a Golf, there's a reason. It's got to be something special. It doesn't look like a competition machine. It has a license plate, so it's probably not a concept car. So what gives? What is so special about this Golf? Well, it's not a Golf. And that's what's so special about it, because you've probably heard of companies like Gembala, Roof, 9FF, AC Schnitzer, various others too, these kind of custom-built houses, tuning houses, aftermarket houses, in various stages of basically taking German cars and modifying them. Sometimes just literally doing that, sometimes more ground-up creations and selling them as their own thing, like Roof does, for instance. So who is this? Who is Artz? Well, Artz is one of those more crazy companies. You probably haven't heard of them. Some of you have, most probably haven't, especially compared to many others like Hamann or Roof. But it's run by a guy called Gunter Artz, or at least it was at the time, and he also ran a Volkswagen dealership. And in the late 70s, he produced roughly 6 of these, I believe including a prototype version as well, which you can see in some of the images in the video. And the reason why he produced those was believed to be a combination of two things. One, because he could, which is always a great reason, and two, as a promotion for the Golf GTI. That sounds kind of weird though. Why would you just produce 6 Golf GTIs to promote the Golf GTI? Seems kind of redundant. Well, of course, because it's not any old Golf GTI, and as I mentioned just now, it's technically not a Golf at all. Because in reality, this is a much larger vehicle than a Golf, as you can see in the images here, significantly bigger in fact. Because this car, the Artz Golf, is a full 9 inches wider than the Golf was at the time, and the reason why is because it's basically just a Golf body. Only the doors and the side panels are actually from the Golf, and everything else is either custom or, and this is the spicy bit, a Porsche. Because underneath, that's exactly what this is, a late 70s Porsche 928. And that means pretty much everything. The chassis, the engine, the gearbox, even the interior, which is still a 4-seater like the 928 is, but now with even more legroom, better headroom as well because of the Golf body. It's a Porsche underneath. And of course, suddenly the larger physical size makes a lot more sense. Now, to give you some idea of the production costs involved in doing something like this, according to Gunter himself, the windshield alone cost them $3,500 to have custom made. In the 70s, that was a lot more than $3,500 now. Now, as far as performance, the engine is a 4.5 litre V8, which is pretty awesome for a Golf, and certainly, of course, would not feature in a standard Golf, and would probably not even fit in a standard Golf, but it gives you great performance as well. Albeit with the caveat that this is the late 70s, after all. So, of course, a modern-day Golf GTI is faster as standard than this custom car was back then, but for the time, this was rapid. 240 horsepower is big territory for a Golf. Even now, that's healthy. It's not the top anymore, but it's healthy, that's for sure. That's what GTI level these days, not quite Golf are. And the performance is great. It's rear-wheel drive, of course, has a 0 to 60 time of 7.5 seconds, and can do about 145 miles per hour, flat out, which for something with the aerodynamics of a shoebox, instead of a Porsche, that's impressive. 7.5 seconds doesn't sound that remarkable now, but back in the late 70s, there was pretty much nothing else in the commercial vehicle category, certainly not the hatchback world, that could keep up with this. Now, as far as production, as I mentioned earlier, it's rumoured that he built around 6 of them. Good luck finding one for sale, because even if you do find one, you could miss it because you think it's a standard Golf. And I think they did a really good job of managing to make the car look actually radically different to a regular Golf when you put them side by side. But yet when you see the car on its own, it doesn't look cartoonish. That's a fine line to run. It's a Golf that doesn't look ridiculous, despite the fact that it looks, in a side-by-side comparison, almost like twice as wide as the regular car in a very Hot Wheels style fashion. It looks like a caricature of a Golf, and yet on its own it looks legit. You would believe it if you saw it on the street. You'd probably just think it was a classic Golf until you actually looked at it for a while and thought, wait a second, there's something off about the shape of that Golf, and why is it taking up the whole lane? Well, because it's a Porsche underneath. Now, as far as the implications of this entire series, of course this car didn't rock the racing world or redefine what hot hatches would become, but sometimes I just like to take a look at cars which are really cool and completely undervalued, sometimes for the most part forgotten. And in the case of a car like this, it's not just that it was forgotten for the most part, it wasn't hugely well known to begin with. It's super rare, it's crazy already, so of course it wasn't going to be a car that would get anywhere near the kind of, well, fan fervour that a normal Golf GTI still has to this day. The fact that it's hard to collect them because there were hardly any produced, they're hard to find, and for most people they're hard to even recognise if you're looking at one. So overall, I think it's a really cool little car. I love companies who go out of their way to make these more than just tuned creations, but totally bonkers creations, where it's more of a ground-up effort, combining cars or radically overhauling cars like the MTM Audi TT Quattro that we discussed before, another perfect example. This one, much more subtle. It's kind of a sleeper car as far as this series go, but I would say a really cool one. You've got the full Porsche interior with the leather, but the visual style of a Golf. Don't get much more of a sleeper than that, and it's not the only car of this type that Artz has done. They also did a Porsche-powered Beetle, they've done a couple of other crazy ones as well. So yeah, they're a company that's worth looking into if you're a fan of this kind of thing, especially, of course, back in the day. But that's it for this installment. Of course, if you want to check out all of the previous episodes of this series, click through here at the end of the video, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.